Time flies and the first quarter of 2021 has passed mainly in remote working, so nice to be back here at the Result Studio with Mikko, Kemira's Head of Investor Relations.
Indeed, Tiina.
Kemira has just published its January-March results. Mikko, please summarize us the first quarter of the year.
Sure, and if we start with the operating environment first, so what we saw was that the end market demand continued to recover compared to the previous quarter. So, and this was positive since we saw some challenges during the quarter. So the COVID-19 pandemic continued. There were some global disruptions in supply chains. And in North America, we saw some logistics issues following the very cold weather there in February. Particularly, we saw demand improving in the pulp and paper end market. And from the industry and water market, one thing to highlight would be the shale demand that continued to recover on a sequential basis. If we then look at our financial performance and start with revenue, so a reported revenue declined by 6% to 606 million euros, and this was mainly due to a negative currency impact. Excluding this currency impact and the more volatile oil and gas business, our revenue was stable. Profitability, on the other hand, that remained strong. So operative EBITDA was 105 million euros, and the operative EBITDA margin actually improved to 17.3%, and this is at the upper end of our financial target range. Looking at our segments, starting with pulp and paper. Pulp and paper saw revenue decreased by 2%. This was also due to negative currencies, but the organic growth was plus 2%. And what was positive was that we saw sales volumes surpassing the pre-pandemic Q1 2020 level. Profitability on this front improved and the operative EBITDA margin was 17%. Industry and water, our other segment, revenue decreased by 10%. Organic growth on this segment was minus 7%, and this was mainly due to lower sales volumes and prices, particularly in oil and gas. But profitability continued to be strong, and the operative EBITDA margin was 17.6%. And maybe one thing to highlight still was the AGM that approved the board of directors dividend proposal of 0.58, and the first installment was then paid in early April.
Kemira has several ongoing investment projects. How are they progressing?
Indeed, so we have 4 ongoing investment projects, 2 in pulp and paper, 2 in industry and water. Starting with pulp and paper, and if we go to Asia Pacific first, in South Korea, we have a joint venture in the form of construction of dry polymer capacity in the country. This facility is scheduled to start production actually now in Q2, and it will ultimately then improve our market position in the growing Asia pulp and paper market. Shifting to South America, there we have an ongoing sort of bleaching chemical capacity expansion in Uruguay, which will then ultimately cater for UPM's new pulp mill in Uruguay, and this facility is scheduled for completion end of 2022. Going to the other segment, industry and water, if we start with the US, there we have an ongoing a capacity expansion project in the US for bio-AMD and emulsion polymers, catering mainly for the oil and gas market. And this project will be finalized now in the coming quarter when the second part of the facility starts to ramp up, and full production is expected in the second half of this year. And finally, we have an ongoing coagulant expansion in the UK. So there the facility will be finalized towards the end of this year. And if we think about the UK water treatment market, we expect demand to grow in the long term due to tightening regulation, and this investment will improve our market position in the country.
What is Kemira's outlook for this year?
Well, we have kept our outlook unchanged. We see some pressure towards higher input costs, and there are some shortages of raw materials, but we will continue our active work to mitigate this impact. But as said, the guidance is unchanged. In terms of revenue, we expect revenue in local currencies, excluding acquisitions and divestments, to increase from 2020. And on the operative EBITDA side, our expectation continues to be that Kemira's operative EBITDA is at the same or slightly below the 2020 level.
Thank you for the interview, Mikko, and let's enjoy the spring safely.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you, Tiina.